Hi there, it's Mr. Clark. Welcome to lesson MED.1.4 on modern Neumes. We have quite a bit to get through in this lesson. So now we have a staff and we have different Neumes that we saw. So we have a definite method of pitch notation. A lot of the earlier manuscripts have a lot of legibility issues, so we're going to focus on a more modern edition. This is known as the Liber Usualis, a book of traditional Catholic chants that was prepared by monks at the monastery of Salemsis in France and proclaimed to be official Catholic Church music by Pope Pius X in 1903. It's not a scholarly edition. It regularizes a lot of the symbols, which makes it not as historically accurate, but easier to read. It also adds some interpretive symbols that weren't present in the originals, but again, much easier to read, so that's what we're going to focus on here because it has the same principles as those early manuscripts that are really hard to read. So the Neumes that we saw in the very first section have largely survived. They're regularized here into square notation, by which I mean the note heads are now square. So the punctum, instead of a circle, is now just a square, and the virga, instead of looking like that, now is a square with a dot. So punctum, virga. And then you have these different interpretive symbols that have generally been added, weren't present in the original manuscripts. You have this vertical dash, this vertical epicema, that word's still around, that indicates a bit of a metric emphasis. The horizontal epicema means the note is going to be a little bit longer than the notes around it. You can combine those together, and a dot indicates a more significant lengthening of a note. I would say kind of typically towards the end of a phrase, but not necessarily. Our 2 and 3 note Neumes still exist. They have different shapes now. I'm pulling up our original shapes so we can see them side by side. So you have the pace, now also known as the podatus, where instead of having a checkmark shape, you have two notes that are right on top of each other connected on the side here. And what this indicates is you sing the lower note first and then the upper note, which might be a little bit counterintuitive. This might be one of the harder ones, because normally we think left to right, top to bottom. Not in this case. So C is up here, so that B, A, G, F, E. Nope, that's a lie. That's an F. C, B, A, G, F. I can't count. So F going up to G, E going up to G, and then G going up to C. So it's translated into modern notation on the side here. You have the clevis look like that. Still kind of looks like that, but now with clear note heads showing where each of those notes are. You have the bivirga. This is a new one, where you kind of have just the same note twice in a row. Bi meaning two, virga meaning virga. Yeah. Distropha, which is two punctums in a row, same sort of meaning. The scandicus looked like that before, still kind of depending. It's three notes that are going upwards, so depending on how those are connected exactly, you have punctum and then a podatus. You have a podatus and then a virga. You have a punctum and then a podatus. Any combination of three notes going upwards in this way would be called a scandicus. You have the thalicus, where you have this little metric emphasis, so instead of going like da 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 da, so it's just a different emphasis there. All right, back to ones that we've seen before. The climacus. Oh, sorry, those were more examples of the salicus. Here were some repeated notes, da 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 da, where you could combine da 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 da. Okay, so the climacus, which probably looks the most similar, going downwards. Torculus, again, decently similar, where it's low, high, low, and you can connect them with these vertical lines. The porrectus, where you start high, go low, and then higher again. This one is a little funky. So the last note is obvious where it's supposed to be because it's a square, but then you have this thick diagonal line going on. And you kind of try to see if it intersects the line, it's going to be a line note. If it's just living in the space like here, it's going to be a space note. So it intersects this C line, so this top note is a C, then it goes down, it intersects this lower line, so that's an A, then it ends on a B. Here it doesn't intersect, so this starts on a G, goes down to F, it does intersect, and then ends up high on a C, and then you have a tristrofa. We had the bistropha earlier, or distropha, sorry. Now tri, so 3 of them, which kind of just a lengthening of the note. So these basic forms of neumes can be combined into longer compound neumes if you have more than 3 notes in the syllable. Again, if you have however many notes you have in a syllable, you generally want to fit that into one neume, unless it's stupid long, in which case you can break it up into multiple neumes. How these translate should be obvious, but it does give a chance for more fancy names. So like, this is clearly a pace or a podatus, followed by the climacus shape. So you start on A, go to B flat, because there's a flat there, then A, G. But if you want to be fancy, whoever wrote the Liber Usualis clearly wanted to be fancy. They called it a podatus sub bipunctus. Great. You know what it means. You can figure it out. You don't need to nail the names as long as you can figure out what the notes mean. If you replace the note head with a tiny note head, that makes the neume liquescent, which happens with certain letter combinations. Again, doesn't change the actual pitches, just makes it the performance practice is different, more light, more smooth. So here are some examples with tiny note heads of these liquescent neumes. So this is clearly a pace, but then the top note head is tiny. You have the porrectus here, where again, I'm not sure I really see that one, but they say that note head is tiny. Here you have the torculus. The last note head is clearly tiny there. You can see what's going on. So one of the other things that was added to the Liber Usualis is they have these vertical divisions on the staff which look like bar lines to us today. These did not generally exist in the original manuscripts, but they are useful in this modern edition. So you have the major division, which means to give more weight to the notes preceding it and to take a full breath. So this would be like a full cadence point. You have a minor division, which you give a little weight to the notes before it, and a short breath. So maybe like a phrase, and then a small division or a brief pause would probably just be like a breath that you need to take. Then final division would be the end of a piece or the end of a big section of a piece, kind of like a final bar line. So here is an example of this is straight from the Liber Usualis, and here it is in modern notation. So some things to note. At the end of each of these lines, there's this like little symbol that indicates what the first note of the next line is going to be. So that's just an aid for reading. This is not a note in and of itself. This helps you to read ahead. Great, sure. This XC at the top just means it's from the 10th century. That's all. The asterisks indicate that the beginning of a chant is usually a soloist, and then the congregation or the full choir joins in at the point of the asterisk. IIJ indicates that you sing this 3 times, because there are 3 different letters. I, and then J is the final time. So then you get down here, okay, so you sing this next big section 3 times. You sing this section only 2 times, and then this last section, there's no repeat at all. And then you'll also note that rhythm down here is not notated, because chants were typically sung in a kind of flexible rhythm, and medieval rhythm in general is really, really hard. We'll talk about that later. So that's kind of all of the weird symbols that you might not understand, but don't actually have anything to do with the pitches. So if we look at the pitches here, we have our C clef, B, A, G. We're starting on a G, go up to A. Remember, with the pace, we start on the lower note and go up. So G to A, and then a C, C, down, back down to A, or single punctum, A, C, C, B, G, A, G, E, F, F, D. Did I get off somewhere? B, G, A, G, F, G, G, E. There we go, sorry. The notation is correct here. I'll keep going a bit just because we see a couple more different kinds of neumes, but then you can figure it out on your own. So we start up on our C, D, C. Here's our porrectus, the weirder one. So it doesn't intersect a line, so this is a B. This one does. A, C. Torculus. A, C, B. And then another porrectus. G doesn't intersect a line. Now it does. F, A. So that's what's going on here with our modern neumes, and you should now be equipped to translate from the Liber Usualis. See you next time.